Well, it's hello. Hello everybody. It's 4:31. We'll go ahead and get started, and of course we might have a few more people join us, but we do appreciate your time joining us today. We're here to talk about the 2022-2023 North Carolina Future City competition presentation judging. I'm sorry, it should be preliminary judging training. So y'all are all considered preliminary judges in the competition. So next slide, Chris. So we just wanted to touch on, I guess, my name is Patty Jordan. I work with Mont McDonald, but I am the Future City Logistic Chair. And also on the line, we have with us today Chris Kreider from ICE Engineering, who is going to be our judging coordinator. So he kind of oversees all the judging of the competition. So we're just going to kind of cover some overviews of the program and then get into a little more detail about the training itself. So we just want to start off with each year the theme changes for the Future City competition. So I know a lot of you judges or that are on this call, you may be seasoned and been with us before, but a lot of you are new. So this year's theme is on climate, and you can read here kind of the overview of what the kids got. This is a synopsis of what the kids got, but the main thing that they had to look at was climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. And they kind of picked one or two little things to focus on. So each team might be different in what they pick, but that's kind of the whole concept of where they should have taken their future cities. And you should see that in their presentations that they're doing and how they answer their questions. So next slide, Chris. Here's just a really good kind of difference between adaptation and mitigation. This is just kind of a good little example of what the differences between the two are and some examples of some overlap. There are, if you go to our Future Cities North Carolina website, and I'll put that in our chat, there's 2 videos that we've done where we actually had experts come in and talk about climate change adaptation. And so there's a lot of good information there. So if you get a chance to watch those videos, it might just kind of help you with some of the key words that you might hear the students talking about and things like that. It gets you kind of up to speed on some of the climate things that they were privy to. The next slide, Chris. So the day of competition is set for Saturday, January 21st at the McKimmon Center in Raleigh. Students will arrive at NC State. We're looking at, we only have 29 schools actually participating. I think I wrote this slide before then, but there will be probably 500, 600 students there. And then we add in the educators, the mentors, and their family and friends. So we're probably looking at close to 700 people at the facility. So it will be a really big crowd there. But so in the morning, it's set up that we do our preliminary round in the morning where we'll do our judging, and then there'll also be specialty award judging going on at the same time in the big, I'm calling it showcase room, where all the teams will have their model showcase. So, but the students as a preliminary judge will put you in separate rooms, and the teams will actually come to you to present. So you won't have to go anywhere. You'll pretty much be sitting in that same room all morning. And so in the afternoon, we will select based on everybody's scores. Once all the scores are in, they'll also tally, essay scores, which are already been done and all that. And then the top 4 teams will actually come and present live in front of an audience, and we'll be in a big auditorium room. And the 4 top teams will actually do the same kind of presentation that you'll see and do that live in front of the whole audience. And then we'll select our finalists to represent North Carolina in the nationals, which will be February 18th up in DC. So next slide. So I'm gonna hand it over to Chris Kreider, who's gonna kind of cover some of the logistics of the scoring and the roles.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you, everybody, for volunteering to be a competition day judge, whether you're a presentation and Q&A judge or whether you're a model judge. We've got 29 teams competing, and the way it'll break out is they'll be judging sessions starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, and each session will be 35 minutes. There's going to be 7 different rooms being judged at the same time. So we'll have 7 judging sessions. And then in each of those sessions, there will be 6 judges. There will be 3 presentation and Q&A judges, and then 3 model judges. You'll also have a timekeeper in that room, and that will be the person that will help cue you when to start, when to finish, and who to turn your scores into at the end of each session. Because we've got enough judges to judge each 3 times, we are going to be taking an average of those scores. So there's 5 parts to the competition for scoring. The first and the 5th part have already been scored. Those were submittals that teams have already turned in. And so those points are kind of in the bank already. At event day, the points for the model, the presentation, and the Q&A will all be scored by you, the judges. The way it's broken up is the presentation and the Q&A are going to be the same judge. If you're judging the presentation, you will also be judging the Q&A. And then if you're a model judge, you will be judging the model. But all 6 of you will be in the same room. You'll all be seated side by side at a long table to be able to be right in front of the teams with their models who are doing the presentations. The city presentation is a 7-minute live presentation by the team. So once the timekeeper tells the team to start, the team has then 7 minutes to provide a presentation to you, the judges, about their city. They will likely have posters and brochures up on an easel to help with the presentation of their city. They may also have some other props that they're using, that they can use. The props, however, must fit within a shoebox size. So you shouldn't see anything really elaborate. Should be just, if they have a prop, it just be a little small prop.
And Chris, before you go to the next slide, I just want to comment, the 7 minutes, the timekeeper's keeping up with that. And if they go longer, they'll be the ones to penalize them. So you don't have to tell them to stop.
That's correct. Yeah, the team presenting will stop when they're done, and the scorekeeper will keep track of if they exceed the 7 minutes or not. So you just need to wait for them to finish their presentation. I would point out again, for those of you that maybe joined late, this is being recorded. So this will be available to everyone shortly after the meeting is over, so that you can review it if there's some parts you want to see again. So let's talk about the rubric a little bit. Well, before I get to that, just talk about, this was provided to the teams to help them with their presentation, right? So it gives them ideas about, the teams need to be shared. The presentation needs to be shared between each of the members. They're allowed to use visual aids and props, and then how the scoring. And the teams will have these scoring rubrics. So, the questions that you're going to be scoring them on, they've all seen these. So don't be surprised if they sort of tailor their presentation to try to hit the high points of some of these questions that you're going to be scoring them on. For the presentation score, there's a maximum of 50 points. I believe there's 10 questions, and each question is worth 5 points, up to 5 points. The teams were provided tips. Remember, these are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. So, they're going to be pretty nervous. Some will be more well-rehearsed than others. You'll see a pretty wide range, I imagine, of presentation skills. in the room that you're in. But we tried to help them to give them tips on presenting, about writing a script, about sharing the load between the three different presenters that are up there. And then practice, 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 right?
Chris, I'm just going to mention here too, I think there's one or two teams that only have two presenters, but they will not be penalized on that.
Okay, good, thank you. Yep, and also in the helping of all of this presentation preparation, each team, of course, is paired with a teacher from their school and an engineering mentor. So they have a small group that they can bounce ideas off of, make practice presentations to, in an effort to, fine tune their presentation. This is just a quick example of what the rubric will look like for the city presentation. Again, there's 10 questions. Each question is worth up to 5 points. And after the presentation is done, you will be judging them on these 10 questions to be able to score them. I'll actually show you the form that will be in your packet, your judge's packet, the morning of. So when you arrive, this is what you should see. So this is the actual sheet that will be printed out and will be in the packet for you the morning of, and you will have the rubric right here. And just to kind of briefly go over it, just hit a couple of questions. The first one is overall presentation content. Was it disorganized? Was there no real flow to it? Poorly organized, maybe fairly organized, contains major elements, details, transitions could be better. So this kind of gives you a sliding scale on how you would judge the overall presentation content. Presentation delivery, the city overview and chosen climate impact. Did they choose what climate impact did they choose to explain about their city, and how good a job did they do in supporting it? Scrolling on down, the use of demonstration aids. Did they use the model in describing their city in their presentation, or did they just sit there and repeat what they had learned to talk about? Teamwork. You'll see this. You may have one student that wants to do all the speaking and the other two just kind of sit there and twiddle their thumbs. Well, that's not how this is supposed to work. All three team members that are up there should be sharing equally in the presentation that they're given.
Chris, can we just say too that if you happen to get a phenomenal team first, you might still leave a little room in there to be able to judge the other one, leave a little fluff so you don't score the first one all fives and then not have any room if somebody's even better to.
Yeah, that's always a challenge, but yeah, that definitely, a sliding scale, because you'll see a wide range. You'll see some that are just happy to be there, that'll stumble through it. And then you'll have some that are polished. I mean, they practiced and practiced, and it's like, they're going to be really good. So yeah. Again, this will be the city presentation rubric, and copies of this will be in the judge's packet for you the morning of, so you don't need to bring anything with you. What we would ask is, when you get your rubric, and you can maybe even do this ahead of time while you're in the judge's lounge before 9 o'clock, is just write the name of the school, write your name and the name of the school or the team up top here, so that when the scores come in, we know who to credit them to, who did them, and who to credit them to, in case there's something missing. Occasionally a judge will forget to put a score down for one of the items, and we need to backtrack and get that, filled out. So yeah, we'll need to know the name of the judge and the name of the team written on top of the rubrics. Let's see, back to the presentation real quick. The next is for the Q&A. So that was the presentation. That's the 7-minute presentation that the teams will be given. Immediately after the timekeeper calls time, on the 7-minute presentation, the teams will stop presenting if they still are. And then the Q&A judge, then the Q&A will begin. So that same judge, if you're a presentation judge, you are also the Q&A judge. And so that is when the questions will begin. There is a list, and I'll share this with you of mandatory questions. And we ask that each judge who's a Q&A judge ask one mandatory question from the list. It's kind of a way of keeping, some consistency between the different judging groups. Now you can ask more than one, but it's a requirement that you ask at least one of the mandatory questions on the list. I would suggest you start off with that, right? That way, you ask your mandatory question on the first time, and then after that, you can pretty much ask any question that you want. Typically, the judging goes, if you've got 3 Q&A judges in the room, one will start, and then you will alternate. So you'll go judge 1, judge 2, judge 3, and then back to judge 1, judge 2, judge 3. So just kind of cycle through the questioning until the timekeeper lets you know that your 8 minutes is up. There is a separate rubric sheet for this. And again, this will be the rubric for the Q&A. Again, the scores are up to 7 points, but there are only 6 questions for the Q&A. So that's a total of 42 points for the Q&A. Again, if you could put your judge name and your team or school up top, that would help us out greatly. So the questions kind of run from engineering and technology. Did they demonstrate in the Q&A an understanding of engineering and technology? Provide little or no details, answer with limited detail, answer questions adequately but could be better, all the way up to answered question clearly and thoroughly, elaborates and with related details, excellent understanding of the concepts. So you got the climate change challenge theme. You've got, so you might want to kind of, if you're thinking ahead about questions or while they're giving the presentation, is think about questions you could ask that would help you determine, hey, this climate change challenge theme, how good a job, if I ask them a question about it, how good a job did they do at answering the climate challenge theme, right? Teamwork and project management, again, how prepared were they? Did they do a good job? Did they share in the answers? The city design and operation, and then the use of the model. Do they in the Q&A? Do they refer to the model? Do they reference it? Sometimes, do they use it more, or do they frequently? Every time you ask a question, they go right to their model and explain to you, yeah, this is how we do it. This is where it is in our city. That sort of thing. So that's the rubric for the Q&A. Six questions, 7 points for 42-point maximum. And so that will be the first of the 3 judges that will be doing the presentation and the Q&A scoring. The other 3 judges that will be seated up front will be the physical model judges or the model judges. So the teams are creating a model. There's dimensions for it, but you don't need to worry about that. We go around and measure them all to make sure they're not too big and not too small. But the teams will create a model, they'll build it on a board, and they'll have it on a table in front of them while they're making their presentation and doing the Q&A. Each model needs to have at least one moving part, and they need to spend no more than $100 on their model. The model should be built to a scale, right? There were engineers, we're used to things scaling up or scaling down, but should be built to a scale, and they should be using recycled materials to the most that they can in their model. And they'll probably point out to you things that they've used and things that they've recycled.
And Chris, the $100, that's just really for their information.
Yeah.
There will be somebody who will check that checks their receipts and stuff to make sure that they qualified for
Right,
that.
this
So
is
you
behind
don't
the
have to
scenes,
ask
yeah.
them that question or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, behind the scenes, they have to turn in a itemized cost list of what they spent. And we check it to make sure they don't spend more than a hundred. In the physical model, there's the rubric. Again, here, 5 points, 0 to 5, 12 questions. And those 12 questions give you 60 points total for the actual model. Talks about city zoning. Typically, the zones have three, the city should have 3 zones: residential, commercial, industrial. They should be able to point out and describe to you where they're located in their city. City infrastructure, water, power, utilities, city services, transportation systems. All things that are being scored in their model that during the model judging, you will be able to ask questions of the team, and they will show you, if you ask them about, hey, show us how do people get around in your city, for example, they ought to be able to point to their model and show you how people get around in their city. So those are the 3 rubrics. You've got the presentation, the Q&A, and then you've got the model. Here also is the mandatory questions. Again, these will be in your packet. And I'm not sure, did these questions get attached to this invite, Patty? I know the rubrics did.
Yes, they
Yeah.
did. And I was just
So-
looking, and these topics are the same that's in the rubric too. So
Okay.
these can kind of be some of those questions in the rubric.
Yeah, so these will help you to answer the question of those rubric questions of how to score the teams.
And also there's a list of questions in the handbook that are just like general questions that they use to practice. We'll probably include that in the packet too. So it'll just be another handful of questions if you want to pick from a list to just help assist you, but you're free to come up with your own question.
Yeah, it's
ask
good
it.
to interact and I think ask questions that maybe you thought about while they were giving a presentation because it's something they started and you want to know more about it. But yeah, there will be a list of general questions so that, as you're going through your 8 minutes, if you're kind of running low on questions, you have something to pull from to continue asking questions. Let's see. Back to the presentation. Just to share with you what will be in your packet. This is what the typical packet will have. You will have 5 presentation rubrics, 5 Q&A rubrics, 5 model rubrics. You will have a master judging schedule, which will look something like this. It may look a little different, but just to kind of share it with you, this is kind of the master judging spreadsheet that we're using internally. So we've got different rooms: room 3, room 4, room 5. In room 3, we've got, these are the preliminary and Q&A judges assigned to room 3. And these are the model judges assigned to room 3. And then in room 3, these are the sessions. So the first session starts at 9 o'clock to 9:35. This will be the city and the school. And I believe this is the teacher that
That's
goes with
correct.
that school.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you can see if you're one of these 6 folks, you're going to be in room 3 starting at 9 o'clock. And these are going to be the 4 sessions that you sit through and judge. So there'll be a form of this in your packet as well.
And Chris, I just noticed that we don't have a break in there for like bathrooms and stuff, but there are some times when the scoring will, and they can use that time to take a few minute break, hopefully.
Yeah, I've got that on the, yeah. So the next
Yeah.
slide, we've got kind of a breakdown. I'll get to that in the next
Yeah.
slide. So there'll be a judging room, schedules, competition rules and penalties, mandatory question list, practice question list, a layout of McKimmon Center, so you can find your way around, future city map, and then an overview of scoring. To show you this is kind of how McKimmon Center is laid out. So you'll be in one of these judging rooms, like 3, for 7A or B, 8A and B. The judge, I believe the judging, once you come in the front door here, the main entrance, you'll register right here in the lobby. You'll get your packet, you'll get a name tag. And registration starts at 8 o'clock. So we encourage you to get there early. The judging starts at 9. So we need everybody in their seats ready to go at 9 o'clock. So again, I would encourage the judges to kind of get in your room, 5 to 10 minutes early so you can get seated and get ready for the 9 o'clock start. But between 8 and 9, after you've picked up your registration packet, I believe we're having a judge's breakfast down in room 6. And you don't have to remember this. There'll be volunteers that will show you, where to go. And, maybe in this room while you're having a little breakfast on us, we're providing breakfast for you. You might put the name of each of your name and the name of each of your teams on your different rubrics that you're going to be turning in.
And Chris, this might be a good time to highlight that y'all are considered preliminary judges for both the city Q&A and presentation, but we also have specialty judges, which will be in that big room 2 in the morning. The specialty judges will have to go to training that morning from 8:30 to 9. So if you hear somebody come in and say they're special judging, meeting over here, training in this room, that doesn't include y'all. Y'all, this is your training here, so you don't have to do that the morning of. So just making you aware in case you hear that and you're wondering what that is.
Yeah, this is the judges training for the presentation, Q&A, and model. And the specialty judges will get theirs that morning between 8 and 9, but that's not you guys. Yeah. So if you hear somebody saying, hey, there's judges training, that's not you guys. That's the specialty judges. Yeah. So this is kind of how we hope to have the 35-minute session broken out. At 9 o'clock, the teams come in and set up. They've got a few minutes to come in and set up their model, get their easel ready, get their, whatever they want to put up on their easel about their city. And then when they look ready, the scorekeeper or the timekeeper will ask them, are you ready? And then if they say yes, then, I'm sorry, before that, there's the judge's introduction. So after the team has set up, we would like for each of you 6 judges in each room just to, give them just your name, what type of engineer you are, and then, who you work for. Just a little introduction. Following the introduction of the judges, then the timekeeper will ask if they're ready to start. They'll say yes, and they'll say, okay, begin. And that's the 7-minute presentation. Immediately following the presentation, those 3 judges that are the Q&A judges, as well as presentation judges, you will begin asking your questions. And there's an 8-minute period to ask questions. At the end of that 8 minutes, the timekeeper will say time. And then if you are a Q&A and presentation judge, then your speaking roles are done. And at that point, if you're a model judge, you are invited to get up and walk up to the model, maybe walk around the model, and then begin your judging of the model, in which you ask questions about the model, right? Now, the presentation judges you're welcome to get up and look at the model as well, but we only want the model judges asking the questions about the model during that 7-minute model judging. Once the 7 minutes of model judging is done, the timekeeper will indicate that it's done, and then the teams will have 5 minutes to sort of get their stuff together, and there'll be volunteers in the room to help them move the model out. So that's kind of the 5 minutes at the end and 5 minutes at the beginning will give you guys a little bit of time between each of the sessions.
Chris, we didn't put this in your presentation, but there are finalist judges too. So there are 4 finalist judges that will be presenting doing the afternoon program. And so they'll still follow the exact same rubrics. So the rubrics for them will be exactly the same. And those finalist judges will only be scoring the city presentation and the Q&A, we have another set of people that's going to do the final city model rubric. So for those finalist judges, it'll just be city presentation and city Q&A. And that's set up that it'll be the 4 top teams, and we'll be in the large room auditorium, and those teams will come up and present in front of the whole audience. We're still working kind of on our little time frames for that, but they'll still be the same. They will still follow that same 7-minute and 8-minute Q&A, 7-minute presentation, 8-minute Q&A. But you will still be required to do the mandatory questions. And we will sequester the other teams while their presentation's going on. So we will be, it'll be spread out a little bit more, I guess, because they'll do a presentation and then we're going to give out some specialty awards and then do another presentation. So we will be providing y'all with a more detailed agenda, I guess, as we develop it.
Yes. And
But
would
I
add
know, yeah, that those finalist judges, I'm well aware that usually they like to maybe wait until the very end to score all the teams, or to, you know, get together and kind of talk about all the teams together and make their final judgments. So we will allow time for that in our
for
agenda
the finalist judges, right? But
for the finalist judges.
preliminary
Yes.
round judges, we would, at the end of the session, we would like you to have you submit your scores to the timekeeper, because we need to collect those and have time to get them entered into the competition management software that we're using. You know, do your best to get them scored within that session and turn them in at the end of that 35 minutes. Let's see.
And
Oh, lunch. Yeah. So the morning session will end sometime around, depending on which room you're in, either 11:20 or possibly 11:55 if you're in room 8A. Following that, you know, lunch is going to be provided to the judges as well. So you're welcome to stick around after your judging is done, enjoy lunch, and then stick around for the afternoon to watch the announcement of the finalists and then the presentation of the top 4 teams. And I think that's about.
there are a couple that we do have some questions in the
Okay,
chat,
yeah,
so
I
we can
don't
go over
have
them
this. If
too.
you want to, I can unshare, and then if you like to take it from here.
Okay. Our first question was, how many questions can be covered in 8 minutes? And yeah, that really varies depending on how long-winded the team is in answering them. So hopefully you can at least get 4 or 5 questions in there, but yes, it is not a lot of time. So yeah, you want to be pretty practical with your questions. The movable part, is it to be capable of self-movement? And that's correct. It usually is battery powered or wind power, you know, so usually it is. I think maybe you can twist something, you know, like they could turn a crank or something and make it move. But it's just, I guess it has to move. Another question is so we went over kind of the finalist judge information. We are planning for the finalist judges to meet in the auditorium at 12:30. And we will kind of go over the event logistics there one more time with the finalist judges. Is there an official dress code for the judges? I would just say work attire. You know, but a polo shirt and khakis, I think, is fine. You do not need to wear a suit. It says, do we need to wear the t-shirt? No, the t-shirt's just for you to take home. So everybody should have gotten a email to apply for a t-shirt, and there'll be a t-shirt booth. So you should just be able to go by there and pick up your shirt in the size. So hopefully there's enough there in everybody's size to order. So just at some point before you leave, go by the t-shirt booth to pick up your shirt. And you will also get a swag bag from Future Cities. So we have some Future City swag to give away. I can't quite remember everything that's in there, but you should be provided like a pen and a notepad at least. And a lot of people do use those like during their judging session to just make notes or something that they want. So you will get a little tote bag with some goodies in it. So be sure to pick those up. We are going to print out name tags for everybody. And when you get there, there'll be two separate registrations. There'll be one for teams, and then there'll be one for judges and volunteers over to the side. So you'll be kind of separated from that. But we are planning on printing name tags. The other question is, does each judge score independently without confirming with the other judges? Yes, we will average the 3 scores from each grouping for an average. So yes, each judge can be independent. I guess if you want to discuss something among yourselves, whether you think they answered this question or not, or I think that's fine for you to have some discussion about questions. That's all the questions. We can open it up for other people's questions if you want to raise your hands or put them in chat. And you might not get a chance, so you're going to be scoring 4 to 5 teams during your day, so you might not get a chance to see some of the other teams. But when your session's over at 11:30 or 12, you're free to walk into that general session and go around and talk to the teams and look at the other models. I believe you're free to take some pictures. You might just ask the team if you can take a picture or something, but I believe that's fine. And I will also say, when you look at that judging session, most of you have an open slot from like the 11:30 to 12. And we've kind of left that open and still want to hold you there for a little bit, just in case one of the teams are late or something. We might have to move them to that end slot. So it's kind of a slot that we do have some teams coming, like from Asheville and some coming from the coastal area. So it may take them a while to get there. Hopefully that doesn't happen and we can stay on task, but if something does happen, that kind of gives us a cushion. Another question we have is, are we all aware of our judging assignments, that they didn't get theirs? We can resend out the judging matrix thing that we have. I'll resend that out to everybody, and just know that we need you to keep your rooms and not switch rooms with people, or switch roles, because in our backworking system, we've already identified you as certain roles and in certain rooms. So we need to be able to match you with that. So we ask that you don't do that. Switch rooms, but we will provide you the list, and that will be in your judging packet too. Will be where you should go. Somebody asked, is there a conflict if we judge an essay in one of our assigned presentations? No, there's no conflict with that. That might just give you a heads up of maybe what they're going to talk about and describe. I don't know if that is I don't know if that's one of the scoring rubrics or not, if they utilize their essay question or something. I can't remember if that's in there, but we didn't even try to necessarily pair people up, but it's fine. It's a totally different scoring system, so they're already done and scored. Somebody else asked, let's discuss family picture taking at the end. Okay. Go ahead, Mark, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. I haven't done this in a couple of years, but up until COVID, what I saw was increasingly the photographs and the cell phones coming out while the judges are given that 5 minutes to score. And it's hard to have a conversation and confer with other judges while the team is still in the room, and they can be taking pictures for 5 minutes. So maybe that's already been addressed in recent years, where maybe the timekeeper knows to usher everybody out, give us the 5 minutes alone.
I don't know that it has, but that's a good point. We will mention that to like the model movers to to bring that up. And I guess they want their picture, they want to take the team's picture in the judging room, as an action type photo.
Yeah, right. As
Uh,
soon as they finish, as soon as the
yeah.
model judges stop asking the questions, then all the cameras start coming out, and that 5 minutes to actually do our scoring and get the paperwork in is precious.
Okay. I will note that and bring that up to, put that in our modeler movers notes and the timekeepers notes to address that. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? There's a lot of other things going to be happening simultaneously as this judging is. Like I said, the specialty awards will actually be going around inside the big room and doing judging at some of the tables. We will have, I think there'll be a couple vendors there to talk about like STEM camps. And we have a really good lineup for the afternoon. We have Martin Luther Vega, who's the NC State Dean, is going to be speaking. Leah Bug with NC State, and we also have the mayor of Raleigh, Marianne Baldwin, coming in to speak. And then we'll have some other really great people doing some of the specialty awards, like Miles Palmer and some other key officials. So we'd really love for you to stick around for the afternoon. We've tried to do a good job. We are all volunteers here at the Future City competition. So we've been working really hard to try to keep everybody informed and try to make this as seamless as possible. So please just bear with us if you don't see something, or feel free, take control of the room. If people are taking pictures and you need to ask them to leave, feel free to make some executive decisions like that. What you need to do to get your stuff done. But we really do appreciate y'all volunteering. Without y'all, to make this competition wouldn't be possible. So y'all are a vital part of this competition, and I think it really bodes well for us to have you as industry professionals in front of the kids. It really makes them feel special that they're presenting in front of somebody who's reputable and in the business, and they'll be proud to have done it. So thank y'all very much. Well, if nobody else has any other questions, we've only got like 10 days until the competition. So we'll be here before we know it. If on event day something should happen, please call us and let us know, just so that we can backfill that position, or make sure it's covered. So hopefully that doesn't happen. God forbid, if there's some inclement weather, we'll be sending out announcements for that. If that was to arise, we will try to keep you updated and posted on the happenings of that. But let's keep our fingers crossed for no inclement weather. So looking forward to seeing everybody in person. It's great to be back in person again, and I know the kids are super excited. It's great to have everybody back in person. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Yep. Thanks, Patty. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.